You're planning a gathering with friends and family at your home, but when the guests arrive, your dog gets anxious and starts to show some aggressive behavior. On this episode of the Paw Report, we're joined by animal behaviorist Dr. Sally Foote to help us pet owners navigate the issue so we can avoid any potential problems. So stay with us.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Paw Report. I am your host, Kelly Goodwin, and we've got a great episode ahead because I know it affects a lot of you out there. And so who better to call for this episode is our veteran guest, Dr. Sally Foote, animal behaviorist. And she's going to talk to us about, okay, let me just set up the stage, Sally, because I know people have experienced this. You get ready to go over to somebody's house and you know that they have animals, and the first thing they say to you is, oh, Rover is nice, he's not going to hurt you, you know, his bark is bigger than his bite. And then Rover kind of turns the tables on you, and Rover becomes a little agitated and angry, and hair stands up on the back of his rump. So it happens a lot. So the topic of today's segment is dog aggression towards visitors. It's a thing, right?
Yes.
It happens.
Yes. And so, I think it's always good. Let's have our definitions, right? So let's all be understanding the words we're using and what they mean. Okay. So aggression, when we often know or say the word aggression, we are thinking of when the dog actually bites, or the dog is, well, frankly, actually bites. Biting, the action of biting is that's all people think of as aggression. They don't think of the growling, the standing stiff, or the staring also as aggression. So aggression is defined as threatening body language to have the perceived threat go away, stay away. In other words, standing stiff, standing tall, staring, growling, attempting to bite or snap, and actually biting are all aggression. It's just how intense is that aggression, right? So the bite is actually when the dog is now really using the tools that they learned when they were 4 weeks of age from their mother how to use to make something in their environment, in their space, that might be threatening, causing pain, or bothering them to go away. So aggression is a normal response to a perceived threat, but we got to think of, well, what is it like through the dog's eyes, not our eyes?
Why is my dog aggressive? Now, you said some of it is attained knowledge when they're puppies, but there could be a lot of other reasonings going into why they're all of a sudden angry. It could be anxiety, it could be health related. I mean, I'm sure the list is long.
Sure. So there are different categories of aggression, meaning we have pain-triggered aggression. We have resource guarding, which means guarding over the goodies in life, like food, guarding over the bed, guarding over like doorway, because like that's access to space. Who gets to go outside, right? Who gets to go through this door into this space? Guarding of the owner, because the owner is the one who gives the food, allows, plays with them, etc. So the owner is seen as a resource. So these are two kind of major categories. There are other types of aggression. There's a hormonal aggression, like in the female dog. When she's just given birth and her progesterone is high and her estrogen is, high, these hormones are high, we have more aggression because she's protecting her young. So some of it is a bit innate, instinctive. Some of it is this body protection, like in the case of pain-triggered aggression. An animal who's injured will bite if you handle them or try to pick them up, no matter how sweet and loving they are and how much they know you and trust you. That would drive me crazy at times. As a veterinarian, people say, oh, he's fine, he trusts me, even though he just got hit by a car. No, please throw a sleeping bag over his head as you pick him up to bring him in here. He might bite you. And sometimes owners wouldn't believe us because they had this great relationship with the pet. But in that situation, that animal was in pain. It is a normal physiological response when picked up to flip to bite to make you stop it, because that being picked up could hurt more, you see. So it's always about what we call, and this categorization is based on the triggers. So triggers are what is the movement, the action, the noise, or the object that to that animal is either unknown, they're not socialized to it, or they've had a past experience with something that may have caused fear or pain. Okay, so that's the memory, or they can't perceive it normally. And so we relate to, this is a handout, it's called the Canine, I don't know which camera to look at, the Canine Ladder of Aggression by Dr. Kendall Shepard. And I have this on my website. People can print this off under the Pet Owners Resource tab. But what it shows is how dogs, when there is something to the dog is like unknown or kind of scary, they first show these signs of anxiety, turning their head away, walking away, licking their lips, creeping, ears back, cowering. And as those signs are increasing for avoiding, I'm trying to get away from it, then there comes a point where the dog says, I can't get away from this threat, or this threat is continuing to come at me. So now I have to shift. I have to change over to fighting it off. So that's where then we get in with the stiffening up stare, growling, snapping or snarling, lifting the lips, showing the teeth, and then actually biting. And then there's different intensities to the level of the bite. The problem is all these lower body language signs of anxiety, most people don't realize even our anxiety. They don't realize that the animal is building up in that fear that will then change over to aggression. All that people may recognize is when we get up here to biting. So their dog is already up to this level, and the next step is they're actually going to cause injury.
Territorial aggression is absolutely a thing. You mentioned dog bowl in bed, but that's a big one, especially when we get back to guests coming into my house.
Oh, right.
Me being the dog, you don't live in my house and I don't know you very well. And so now I'm going to respond.
Right. It's kind of funny. I was at a lecture and Dr. Ogata from Purdue University's College of Veterinary Medicine was giving a lecture at the Illinois State Veterinary Medical Association conference on behavior. And she made a wonderful statement. Humans are the only species that want to share their food. We are the only species who make a choice to come together at a table and eat our food together, to come into one bed and sleep together. Now, I don't know why that is, but it is true. All other species really don't want to have another animal eating out of the same bowl with them, or another person or anybody hovering around them. Or when they sleep on a bed, they'd really rather sleep alone and not share it. There needs to be a big enough bed for everybody. There needs to be enough bowls or whatever, and actually like far apart. So the old saying, leave a dog and his bone alone, yeah. Let sleeping dogs lie. Do not hug them. Do not pet them. When they're so cute and laying there, don't kiss them on the head because they want to rest. It can be startle aggression is another category of aggression. It can startle them, and that's when they just flip straight up and they bite. A lot of facial bites to children because they're hugging the dog when they're sleeping and they're kissing the dog when they're sleeping.
That kind of leads me into my next one. Most popular victims then are probably children and maybe senior adults. Do they fall into that?
Not so much, really. The two categories of most common bites are children between the ages, I believe, 2 to 4, and then young men between the ages of 12 to 15.
Really? And why is that?
Okay, so it's pretty much figured the toddler child, dogs do not like face-to-face straight on. Believe it or not, the worst way to greet a dog is to put your face right up to them. So a 2-year-old to 4-year-old child tends to be, right at the height and level of the dog, and the child's tends to come right at the face. Also, children that young, They run around in like less predictable ways because they're children. You know, they're just learning how to run, etc. They will suddenly be very spontaneous in their movements. You know, suddenly they jump up and they do a cartwheel. And all these things can be startling to the dog. So if the dog wasn't raised from 8 weeks up with a bunch of toddlers and rewarded for not reacting to those toddlers, it's actually like, oh, wow, these kids are kind of active around me. And if the kids are still active around the dog or coming to the dog and pestering the dog, and the child can't understand this dog getting up and moving away and growling at them, the dog is going to go to biting them. All right, that's all he's got left. Now, so it's because of the, you know, just the developmental age of that child physically. It's more about the physical aspect of the toddler child. It's theorized pretty much with the adolescent male, it's the psychological development of the adolescent male. The adolescent male tends to be one who's a bit more of a risk taker. He's going to keep trying to pet that dog even though the dog's growling, and even though somebody else told him not to do that, because he psychologically is more of like, yeah, I'll do it myself, yeah, whatever. It just is the category. So,
If we could go back to the stages of aggression in case we couldn't see it. You said a lot of in the green and the yellow and even approaching the orange. Those aren't real noticeable.
Right.
What are they, if you could read those off to us,
Okay.
or some of the other signs of aggression?
Yeah, I love pairing these two handouts, actually. This one you can download off my website from Dr. Kendall Shepard, a British veterinarian, published this. This one is off of drsophiayin.com. So this is what the animal looks like, you know, what they look like in early anxiety. And so what they look like, then you match here. So anyway, things like the yawning, so it might be hard to see both. But okay, so we start with yawning, blinking. Now let's relate it to humans, because humans do the same thing. If I'm, at first you asked me a question here in this television show that made me a bit nervous. I start doing this, don't I? Well, Kelly, actually, right, see, my jaw would tense.
Kinda tense up
I
and-
just tense up a little bit. I start blinking my eyes. My throat tightens slightly. Okay, that's like the dog here, yawning, blinking, nose licking. Then, you know, people do the same thing. That's turning the head away. The dog may be sitting there looking calm, but the toddler starts turning. You see the dog go to the side like this. Somebody's trying to, oh, let me give you a treat, reaching. The dog keeps turning his head away. What he's saying is, I don't like your reach. I don't want that. It's a more subtle level, but it's turning the head away. Turning the body away, sitting or pawing, that's when they actually may get up and actually shift their body to the side, just like if I were like this by someone I don't want to talk to at a dinner party, right?
Right.
Okay, same thing, I mean, yeah. Creeping, ears back, that's where the ears will, now we're not talking about plastered against the side of their head. We're talking about the ears have just turned back, they look kind of relaxed, but they're being held down. And creeping means now they're walking like slowly across the room, they're walking slowly in the area. And it's just like people walking in a room a little more cautiously or down the street cautiously. Ooh, it's 11:30 at night and I'm out in a not so safe neighborhood. Okay, that's like that level. And then standing crouched with the tail tucked under. That's the cowering posture. Okay, that's the dog like hunkered down like this in the corner, laying there with his paws and legs drawn close to him. Then we have, okay, this is a biggie, lying down with the leg up. That's the dog who rolls on his side, exposing his belly. But the dog's legs are pulled close to the body. They're not out like this, relaxed, like when he's sleeping. They're pulled close to the body. And this is actually that transition point where the dog is so like nervous or saying, okay, I'm completely submitting to you, but I am recoiling my body. I'm pulling myself ready to roll over and lunge up on you if I feel more threatened. Right. And this, a lot of times people get bitten. Like, I was just rubbing his belly. I thought he wanted me to rub his belly. But it was in this, you know what I mean, in this posture, which actually, no, he didn't want you to do that. But it was confusing to you because you think that's what the dog is asking for. So then the next stages go up to stiffening up, the staring, the growling, and that's how they're escalating. I think what's also really important is every step in this ladder of aggression, 0.2 seconds apart. So a dog can go from just kind of turning his head away to ears back, and now he's walking slowly within 1 second. And if, say, the toddler keeps running up to him to throw his arms around and hug the dog around the head, then the dog stops and holds stiff and is staring at the child in the face. and then the dog snaps at the child in the face. And all
That's all quick.
That all happened in 2 seconds. Okay, we went up 10 steps. It all happens in 2 seconds. So people go, oh my gosh, I didn't even see it happen. Well, true, it happens so fast, but that's why then we need to be much better at really watching the whole global scene and really paying attention to these quick and subtle changes in the dog's body language, because the dog is telling us what they're trying to avoid. We just haven't given him a way to, so what I always say is, okay, match what's going on around your dog when he looks like whatever, like write down child 4 feet away, running at dog gets up and walks away or is trying to walk away. Say to yourself, okay, either get whatever's happening away from my dog or get my dog away from whatever's happening. So that's how you're avoiding or managing the triggers.
Let's role play. So I come over to your house.
Oh yeah, hi Kelly, how you doing?
Thank you for inviting me over. I knock at the door, your dog is going crazy. Ruff, 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 ruff,
Yeah,
ruff,
yeah.
ruff. Sally comes to the door and says, oh, it's fine, come on in. So I come in, the dog is still
Yeah.
hair standing up and obviously does not
Right.
want me there. What am I supposed to do as a visitor, and what is Sally supposed to do as the pet owner to calm this situation?
All right, so while barking and jumping is not on this list, and it's not because it doesn't exist. I think it was for kind of simplicity, et cetera, and when Dr. Shepard published this. Barking, the dog's usually jumping at the door. I usually would do is take a line and draw from stiffening up stare, draw a line and point it to biting, because on that line, that's where the barking and the jumping up is happening. They're looking at you like you're a threat. And what it all started with was actually when the dog could hear the footsteps coming up the doorway. That's when the dog started running toward the door and barking. So the dog's first trigger is the sound of your footsteps coming up the door. And that's when he first starts barking. And the closer he is at the door, because then he hears you either knock or ring the doorbell. And then, so I'm going to name what happened in that scenario that had that dog triggered up and staying triggered up for your entrance, okay? Because your entrance is the biggest trigger for this dog. All right, it was the sound of your footsteps coming up the steps. Your either ring of the doorbell, knock on the door, me walking toward the door, me reaching for the door, my hand on the doorknob, opening the door, your body appearing through the door and coming over the threshold, and the door closing. That was 8 triggers, okay? Each one of those to the dog is saying, she's coming in, she's really coming in the house. And he's already at a level, when the dog is already at this high, the adrenaline rush on the brain is so intense, they cannot hear a command. They cannot hear any kind of command or direction or anything, and even tossing them treats is like too much. Their appetite center has shut down. So what do? Okay, if you hear the dog, bark, 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 I'm not coming in until you put the dog away, Sally, is what Kelly should say. I love you.
I don't know, I'm
but
kind of
I'm
that
not coming
14
in.
to 18-year-old kid that you just talked about. I would say, oh, it's fine. I'll love on him and pet him.
Right, so I have videos on my YouTube channel. I don't know if I can plug that on public TV, but I have one. It's called Barking Like Crazy 1 and 2. And I show how for the owner now, in this scenario, we're going to have the dog behind a baby gate or maybe tied or tethered at least 8 feet away from the door. And we're going to already start tossing rewards to the dog before we even go to the door, before the person is even hardly pulled up. Okay, so now the dog is while he has appetite, before he's so, charged up, he's getting rewarded for not barking and being quiet. We're changing the meaning right now. Oh my gosh, manna fall from the sky. And then as I go to the door, I'm still one little nugget at a time, tossing it to him. As I open the door and somebody comes in and they'll toss him a reward, but you do not go greet my dog. Because my dog is already saying, your appearance is enough for me. If you reached out, you see now you're adding, you're coming closer to the dog, you're adding approach to the dog. And that's oftentimes when people get bitten. The dog jumps up and he bites them, or he jumps up and he grabs their arm. So instead, leave the dog tethered, leave the dog behind the baby gate. He's getting rewarded just for this scenario. This scenario is what we have to get the dog happy about. Later, we'll get the dog happy about actually greeting you.
So it's really important for the pet owner to communicate with their guests. Like, I have animals. The animals are, they get agitated when guests come. I just want to let you know that. When you get to the door, I'm going to be putting my pet away, and then I will make sure that I come, instead of just letting me.
And just holding the collar for the dog at the door, like so he doesn't jump up. Well, yes, it's limiting the dog from jumping up. But think about what is it like for the dog? The dog now is just like, oh, Kelly's here. I really want to go after her. And it's called an oppositional reflex. If I were to like pull on you, you pull back even harder, then I pull even harder. And this adds to the physical agitation. And then the dog has a memory of anybody holding my collar is when I'm really agitated, which is then why oftentimes now the owner goes to reach as a solution, the owner goes to reach for the collar and the owner gets bit on the hand. They're redirecting. You asked me about redirected aggression.
Right.
The aggression they want to put on the person going through the door, they now put on the hand of the owner because of the just stimulus of grabbing the collar and holding it. So that's why the holding them back by the collar, part of why that doesn't work. It's not a solution and increases risk for bites and injury.
Good or bad? So you know that I'm coming over, but you got busy with dinner and you forgot to put the dog tethered or behind the baby gate. I come in and you're like, oh, I forgot to do all this. Then it's perceived as you're reprimanding the dog for barking at me, hair standing up on me. So is it good or bad to reprimand as the aggression is happening? Does the dog know, ooh, I'm being reprimanded for this action, I better stop?
Okay, so punishment is defined as any action, putting up a barrier, an aversive, meaning like hitting, a shocking collar, whatever, any kind of action that decreases the likelihood of the behavior. That is the scientific definition in the behavior science of punishment. But pretty much punishers tend to be something aversive, something hurtful, right? Something that the animal is not going to want to receive, like getting hit, getting yelled at, whatever. Okay. Now the problem is with the punishment is that the dog is not okay. Yes, it may stop the immediate lunging up, barking, but it increases agitation, it increases adrenaline, and so we have at least a 50% risk that the animal is going to redirect aggression. This is why a lot of the old force-based handling with collar corrections, etc., about 50% of the dog handlers would get bitten in training. And so when you're avoidance, setting up for success, having behind the baby gate, etc., and rewarding, you have like a 4% chance of redirected aggression if you're doing the training. So first of all, that's why the punishment doesn't work. And secondly, then the animal now is going to be like, whoa, you're like my good owner sometimes, and sometimes you're not. And it then builds what we call conflict aggression toward the owner. So even when you're not coming over, to my house, I may now reach to go pet my dog, and now she suddenly flips to bite on me because in her head, she's back to that moment at the front door when I smacked her or I gave her a harsh collar correction because she was jumping at you. Because to her, it's like, reach, is that a good reach or a bad reach, Kind of like that effective walking on eggshells. So what's best is in the moment, because we all have those moments, okay, we're human, right? Oh, I forgot to get the dog behind the baby gate, darn it, oh, my kid let him out, whatever. Just owners say, wait, just stay out there, okay, just 1 second, let me get the dog set up. All right, no. And as a friend, stay out on the front porch, don't come in the house. I tell you what, I don't know. I grew up in Chicago. I can't imagine just walking in anybody's house, friend or parent, without knocking or saying, hey, I'm here. In rural Illinois, a lot of people and friends would just walk in the house, okay? They just walk in. And in that just walking in, the dog is like, who the heck are you, right? It's startling. And also, in that moment, they're like, you're not a part of the family. I don't know, right? So a lot of times the dogs may be barking or coming at people. So it is not rude as a friend or a family member. Actually, it's needed to say, hey, I'm coming in. Is the dog set up? Or you hear the dog barking and going kind of upset. Say, I'll just wait outside till you got him back. Let's play it safe.
All right. So, Sally, we've got a little over a minute left.
Oh.
I'm gonna give you 2 quick questions. So there is hope out there. You
Yes,
can change
definitely.
the dog's behavior. And any particular breeds that this is
More of
more
a
prone
problem.
to?
Yes, so we have what are called reactive breeds. Reactive breeds, they go up this ladder of aggression 4 times faster. And they basically skip over some of these signs. In other words, they're the dogs who like to look first, look, lunge, bite,
Okay.
and ask questions later.
Yeah, sure.
So think of the breeds who are chosen for that: guarding breeds, shepherd breeds, and terrier breeds. So that's why there can be a bit more risk, and everyone should take their puppies and young dogs to puppy classes, for positive classes, to learn how to go away and not get upset about coming through the door. This is the stuff that you go through in puppy classes, but especially if you own a German Shepherd, a Dutch Shepherd, an Australian Shepherd, a Border Collie, a Sheltie, a Yorkshire Terrier, a Jack Russell Terrier, because terriers, that's what they were bred for, to chase after little vermin and kill them quickly. So movement and motion. Now, smaller dogs, people tolerate a lot of these behaviors because they're small. You know, a 10-pound dog isn't going to cause as much damage when they bite you as compared to a 90-pound dog. But to the dog, the same things are going on. So I always recommend all the dogs should learn and be socialized the same way. Yes, you have more responsibility with a bigger dog than a little dog, but little dogs count too.
Little dog, we'll leave it at that. Little dogs count too. Sally Foote, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
joining us for the 12th season of the Paw Report. You're the veteran. Animal behaviorist, and she's got a great website out there for information if anybody wants to check it out. So Sally, thanks again for our conversation.
Thank you.
And thank you, our viewers, for joining us for this episode of the Paw Report. We'll see you next time.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com. Additional support for the Paw Report provided from Soggy Paws of Mattoon.